want you to answer any questions that are possibly given to you.
I'll follow up. So you think we have the ability in Trumbull County then to end up 2 million, 4 million is realistic that we would receive based on the trickle down of it?
If you raise your DTAC to 5, I'm telling you, I know what the numbers are. You can borrow $1 million off the DTAC increase and pay that off over a 5-year period. That $1 million gets you another, so you're $2 million just in your land bank. And I'm going to approach, Mayor, I don't mean to put you on the spot, I'm going to talk to Mayor Franklin. I think it's critical cities take advantage of this money. I don't, the Restore Our Neighborhoods Act, I am optimistic because I have a lot of faith in Steve LaTourette, who has quietly become one of the most powerful members of Congress. But again, I said all we need to get that is an act of Congress. And the environment in Washington these days is difficult. Now, Congressman LaTourette said he has found the offsets. So he's going to make this a revenue neutral act. But let's face it, it's 2012. Now I would argue that if I'm running for president, my party wants to take over the White House, I want to make people in Ohio and Michigan happy, but that's my opinion, and I don't have a vote in Congress. So Congressman Ryan has been very helpful, by the way, as have a lot of other congressmen.
What about, you talked about the EPA concerns as individuals. What about if a nonprofit ends up with the property? What do they fall under?
They fall under the individual restrictions.
Okay.
So it's a much lower standard. That's the part I don't understand. By the way, this is a relatively new ruling. I believe it's just 2-3 years old.
3 years old.
3 years old. Before this, they weren't doing it. But they now realize that there's going to be a lot of demolition activity, and they have imposed a stricter, much stricter, and tougher standards. And all they're doing is driving the cost through the roof. And all they're doing is ensuring there'll be fewer houses that come down, and that doesn't solve our problem.
This is the Ohio EPA or federal?
Well, it's a good question. It was federal initially, and Ohio EPA just recently did a Me Too, and they're in now with the same restrictions as the federal EPA, which is why we went to Governor Kasich's chief of policy in a meeting a couple of weeks ago, Wayne Struble. We had a great memorandum put together by the folks at the Cuyahoga County Land Bank, and they have explained very precisely before this new ruling, after with the federal EPA, and now what Ohio EPA is doing, and they're doing the same thing. So we need to get the state to be a little more sympathetic to what cities are facing. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Rokakis. I had 3 questions. First, when you're talking, like for us laymen, DTAC and 2.5 to 5, what does that mean, please?
Want me to?
Yeah, you can do that.
Let me answer that for Jim.
I'm not a treasurer anymore. Let him do
That's
it.
okay. Basically, what DTAC is we have to understand what DTAC is. That's the collection of delinquent taxes. Okay. When the county collects delinquent taxes, there's a 10% penalty placed on the delinquent portion of the bill. We currently keep 5% of that money in the county. And how we keep that is we keep that 2.5% at the treasurer's office level, 2.5% at the prosecutor's level. Now that's just the 10% penalty. That's not the tax bill, just the actual penalty portion.
So saying if I might $1,000 tax, $100 penalty, 10%, $100 comes back, 50 goes to the county.
25 going to the treasurer's office, 25 going to the prosecutor's office. When Mr. Rokakis and his people in Cuyahoga did an outstanding job of creating the land bank program, they created the land bank program because you have a 10% penalty, you're leaving 5% on the table, and the 5% is, quite frankly, going out to the government agencies that receive distribution.
And a pro rata share based on where those delinquent taxes occurred. So for example, in Cleveland, I got to tell you, Cleveland by far in Cuyahoga County has the highest percentage of delinquent taxpayers. So if you looked at who contributes, the poorest communities contribute the most because they typically have the most delinquent taxpayers. The affluent communities contribute least.
So when the land bank program was created, it enabled, the act enabled the land bank to take the other 5%. Our land bank in its creation, and it does not say, and I think Mr. Rokakis wishes that he would have rewrote it or would have wrote it that you must take the 5%, and it's only because of one individual and you're staring at the individual. We are the only county that didn't take the whole 5%. We left 2.5% in the bucket. what Mr. Rokakis is referring to is if we, as a board, enact the additional 2.5%, that would generate us about $225,000 a year. If we the board, not the county, we the board float a bond with that $225,000, we float $1 million bond, we should be able to pay off that bond in 5.5 years. Correct statement?
Actually, maybe 5.
Even now, he'll even, and I used to be that way, Jim, but Michael has told me to start stretch. He says I put too short on, go long.
You
So
could do it 7,
yeah,
you could do it even longer.
But so what we would do is continue to operate our land bank with the funds from the 2.5%, take the additional 2.5%, and then of course do what we're talking of doing and assure ourselves at least $2 million from the Attorney General's office, $1 million of our own money and $1 million of their money. We would also be adamant to then ask the city of Warren to go after at least $2 million. I mean, those are my feelings, okay? So now you're looking at $3 million into the pot, turning $3 million into $6 million. We would also, and we will call upon Mr. Rokakis to come and help, send us people to help with this. We would definitely like to meet with the city, the townships and so forth. For lack of trying not to get in trouble here, I don't want to go out and shotgun and just tear down houses to tear them down. We all have strategic plans in place, and we need to sit down and talk about those strategic plans. One that comes to my mind, and there's nobody here, I wish there was somebody from Warren Township here. I have a section of Warren Township that touches the city, and I say I because I'm the county treasurer, that has 3 streets that probably has, what is it, Michael, about 5 houses left on those 3 streets?
If that, I checked.
Yeah, about 5 houses left on those 3 streets with about 60, or about 30 houses that need to come down. I can take those 5 people, get them into your city in a rehab home, move them into a rehab home, and eliminate that area, and then down the road turn that into green space right now, roadblock it that nobody can get into it so it don't become a dump and everything, roadblock it, turn it into green space, and then talk about forestry programs and stuff down the road. So that's why the land bank, in this person's opinion, needs $2 million to help our townships and our villages and our smaller municipalities get rolling on the money. And I am very fearful, and I go to sleep at night and this wakes me up. Mr. Rokakis or my neighboring counties will call me and ask me to come and speak on land banking in their county because they haven't started yet. And the credit the man gave me here, he gives me all throughout the state of Ohio. He'll be down in Montgomery County saying, if you need somebody to talk about land banking other than me, call Sam Lamacusa, he'll be here tomorrow. I mean, that's how valuable of a tool I see it. But I sit, now it wakes me up at night, and I don't want to offend you, Jim, but it wakes me up at night that I've helped a lot of communities, and you've helped a lot of communities create this land bank. The Attorney General only has X amount of dollars in that pot. I don't want the other guys to get the money, and then when I go to the cupboard, it's empty. So,
Kind of my next question.
and go ahead.
Okay, you know, there's $75 million allocated. There's 88 counties in Ohio, you know, and you're saying Cleveland's pledging this, Youngstown's pledging this. Is there going to be some fair and equitable breakdown on it?
They're working on that, and I think the point is, if let's assume they raise $25 million in Cuyahoga County, that's not going to happen. They're not going to allow one county to chew up a third of the fund. I know they've also talked internally there about recognizing the fact that some of the counties in the state, especially in the southern part of the state, southeast Appalachia, the Appalachian part of the state, are absolutely destitute. They don't have land banks, they don't have DTAC, they don't have money in any of the city's general funds. They've all been devastated, as you know, Mayor, by the LLGSF cut. So they want to try to put some formula into place that maybe recognizes the most impoverished of communities. But that would be just for a portion of it. They're really sticking to the fact that they want to maximize the leverage. And I get it. You know, when I was in meetings with them, they talked about money the Department of Development had in the prior administration, X amount of money spent, nobody knows where it was spent. They want to be able to quantify this money, match this money, and it knocked down X number of houses.